Today's guest is an example of someone using her crown to break something. A stigma. Megan Rivera, Miss Minnesota USA 2025, grew up embracing the Minnesota lake life before heading to New York to study fashion merchandising at Marist College and launching her career in retail with Macy's and now Target. But beyond fashion and business, Megan is using her platform to advocate for something far more essential: dignity. Through her volunteer work at Days for Girls, Megan is working to ensure women and girls have access to proper feminine hygiene products and education, reducing stigma, increasing confidence, and opening doors of opportunity. Today, we're talking how Megan is using her crown as a catalyst for change and how each of us can learn to do the same. Please welcome Miss Minnesota USA 2025, Megan Rivera, to Act to Impact.
You're listening to Act to Impact with Brandi DeVries. Through heartfelt stories of resilience, hope, and community, I share my personal experience as a longtime advocate and fundraiser for the national nonprofit Children's Cancer Research Fund. Invite pediatric cancer families to tell their stories and highlight individuals who use their unique gifts to create a positive impact.
Yay! Hi! Thank you for that intro. That was so great.
You're welcome. Thanks for being on Act to Impact. I know it's you have a busy schedule, and I only record podcasts so often. And so it kind of took us a little bit of time to get together, but here we are.
It worked out.
I think we had initially connected at the beginning of your reign, and now we're at the end of your reign as Miss Minnesota USA, which is crazy. The time goes by so fast, doesn't it?
It really does. I feel like there's always so much happening that it just slips away.
And, congratulations too on a good year. It's been really nice to watch you on social media and the work that you're doing, to learn more about your platform, which you're going to talk about as well. But if I remember correctly, because as you know, I was Miss North Dakota USA 2011. Oh my gosh, it sounds so long ago. But since I've been living here in Minnesota, I've been watching a lot of you Minnesota girls over the years. And if I'm not mistaken, you have competed year after year, right?
Yes, I competed 2 years prior. So third time's a charm. I won on my third
There
year.
you go.
Yes, but honestly, I think they always say timing is everything. And when it's your time, it's your time. And I truly felt that. And I felt the most prepared this year. So it worked out.
Wonderful. I am so glad that you were able to secure the crown then on your third time trying. I mean, I understand, because it took me 6 years as a miss, or competing as a teen and a miss, before I won Miss North Dakota USA. So, yeah, sometimes it just keeps, like you said, it's all about timing and a plan that we can't prepare for on our own. Okay, so before we dive into your advocacy and impact, I'd love to start with getting to know a little bit more about you. And so, if you don't mind, I just want to ask you a couple get to know you type questions.
Yes, of course. I love.
Okay. So when you were younger, want you to think back to that younger version of yourself growing up in Prior Lake, and you're still in Prior Lake, it sounds like. But
I am.
what would that younger version of yourself be most proud of about the woman that you are today?
Think younger me would be proud and surprised with how confident I've been. I was very shy as a kid, as I'm sure most people are, but I remember my teachers would talk to me and I would start crying, like in first, second grade. Like I just got so nervous. I did not like talking to other people publicly. And so knowing that I've just grown into myself and become more comfortable doing so is pretty incredible. And I think little me would be so proud of me branching out and connecting to people and being on a stage. That's always a big thing, of course.
What do you think that moment was where you kind of did start coming out of your shell and you weren't shy anymore?
Definitely high school. Once I made it through the awkward phases of elementary and middle school, I went to an all-girls high school, and there was no judgment. Everyone was just who they were, and it was so fun. And I think that's when I really learned that it's okay to be outgoing and be loud and be my silly self. There's no one there to judge. And if people are judging, then they're not meant to be your friends. And I found amazing friends through that experience. And that initial starting point in high school, took that with me through college and continued to grow and go after my career and connecting with others even further. So I think definitely high school is when I blossomed.
So, was the Miss USA system the only pageant system you had done?
I did NAM, National American Miss. That was my first pageant ever when I was 12. And at that point, I had no concept of pageants and pageantry and the different systems. I simply got an ad for it in the mail and I was like, okay, this seems cool. Like, I'll give it a try. And I loved it. I had the best time. I thought it was so cool. And I wanted to continue doing it. It never worked out for me to do NAM again. But then in high school, I learned more about the Miss USA system. And I actually did compete as a teen twice. But again, the first year as a teen, I went in completely blind, no coach, did my own hair and makeup, which I don't know where those skills came from, and rented a dress from Rent the Runway and just went on the stage, had no walking practice, and loved it. And I knew that I wanted to come back as a Miss and go full in all the coaching and be the most prepared.
Well, that's awesome. I love that it turned out for you and you stuck with it.
Thanks.
And now, because you're a title holder, you get to talk with people about something that's really important to you. So I want to give you that opportunity to talk about your platform and what you're doing with it as Miss Minnesota USA. So take me back to that moment. Like, I call it a fireball moment on Act Impact because it's all about igniting the fire that's within us to serve a greater purpose and to kind of like light our hearts on fire with service. So, what was that fireball moment for you, if you remember, when you realized that people didn't have access to feminine hygiene products and it was an issue?
Remember this moment very well. It was when I was in high school, and as I mentioned, I went to an all-girls high school, and so we would have a women's week where we would have different guest speakers, women strong in business or strong athletes, just all sorts of different cool activities and work that they excelled in. And we had a group from the organization Days for Girls, and they came in and we had a full day of creating these kits, and they taught us about how there's so many women internationally and locally who just can't afford the necessary basic products that they need for their menstrual cycle and feminine hygiene products and health. And I was kind of in shock because for me, I never thought about that. Like I said, going to all girls high school is so easy to be like, oh my gosh, I need something. Does anyone have something? And everyone's like, oh, me, like here. The options were endless. And I've just never had to think twice about not having these products, not being able to afford them. And then when I really sat with that thought of, wow, there's some women out there who don't have pads or tampons, they can't quickly run to CVS or Walgreens when they run out, I was just kind of like, "Oh my gosh, I can't imagine how would I go about my day and how would I go about my normal activities if I didn't have that protection?" And that's also what they told us about how these girls then they can't go to school, they can't go to work. It's almost seen as shameful. And so they just sit at home and just wait it out. And that really stops them from growing. And so after learning that, I felt so motivated to continue connecting with Days for Girls. And so after high school, when I went to college, I started volunteering with them in New York. And that was the first real chapter after high school. And then when I moved back home to Minnesota, of course, I rejoined and just want to continue any way I can to ensure that women are getting the products that they need.
Why is it that women don't have access to these products? What's causing that?
Two main reasons. The one biggest one is just they're in areas that are rural and they don't live in communities where they can just run out their door and there's a CVS or a Walgreens. Maybe they're living in developing countries and they don't have those products on hand, or they're in a community and they're low income families and there are other priorities such as having a meal for dinner versus running and buying these products because they are pricey, and there is pink tax in certain states where the price is even more for specific feminine products, and that is a big factor. And then secondly, the education behind it. I think a lot of people are scared to talk about this, and it's not often brought up because it seems a little taboo, a little scary, like, oh my gosh, a period. People don't fully understand why we get them and what the process is. And I think that's intimidating. And then so women living in places where they're not taught about it, then they just never know and they don't realize that Their lives and days could be so much easier if they had the proper resources.
So, why is this considered a dignity issue?
It's all about women's health and basic needs and women's health rights. This is basic health. Every single woman has a period. It's not rare, it's not a unique thing. Every woman goes through it. And it's, like I mentioned, basic. And so having these products is just, it should be part of your daily, what you need, what you get from the store. And for women to not to be able to have that, and for them to be prevented from having that, it lessens their dignity and their worth as a woman. It just, some countries view it as shameful and that they should just be sitting inside all day and waiting it out. They shouldn't be going to school. They shouldn't be growing their education and going to work when that's not the case. Every woman should have her opportunity to grow and thrive and have her dignity, have her power.
Why do you think that this stigma still does persist? Because, like you said, everybody should know that women get periods. It just is
Right.
what it is.
Exactly.
And so, why does that stigma still exist then? And it sounds like probably it exists more in like the third world developing countries than it does in the United States. But I still would be curious to know about the stigma here in the US. And then also, what does it cost a girl when when we stay silent about these things?
So I would say the stigma still exists for other countries that are developing, probably because there's a huge lack in education and resources. And there are a lot of different cultures, as I mentioned before, that shame women for having their periods, and they think that it's not a good thing, even though it is normal. And so many people think, oh my gosh, can't be around a woman when she's on her period, maybe hormones, like you don't know how she's going to behave, like let's just leave her alone. And then it's never talked about. And those women who grew up that way, they don't know any better and they think that that's correct and that's normal and that's okay. And so it's never brought up. And then that stigma still persists because that's just how they think it is and they're used to that. And then in the US, I think many people are also, they're just scared to talk about it. It's an awkward conversation, especially when you're not surrounded. Maybe you're the only girl in a family of like four other brothers or something. Like you're not surrounded by women who are going through the same thing. And maybe at school, your friends in middle school, it's kind of weird when you're going through that process and you're like, does my friend have hers yet? Like, I don't know. Do I ask? Do I not ask? Like, there's so many hesitations. And I think that's why the stigma still persists because no one's just going right after it and just being, hey, let's talk about it. Let's be an open book and talk about it.
So, what type of education does Days for Girls provide to help with breaking that stigma and to help girls talk about some of those things that you just said that they might be staying silent about?
So we create kits, and the kits, well, let me just break down the Days for Girls kits for general. For context, it's a reusable pad just because in many places they're being sent to, women can't repurchase. And so we make it a nice reusable solid fabric, easy washable that will last them a couple cycles or more than a couple cycles, quite a few actually. And then we have washcloth, soap, and other basic. Sometimes we throw in tampons, it depends where it's going. But we also have an informational pamphlet in there, and that there's a little chart in the back so the girls can track their cycles. It shows the details of uterus and what's happening, and it kind of breaks down what's happening in their bodies and what they can do to support their bodies. And the nice thing about Days for Girls is members of the organization hand deliver these kits. They're not just being sent out and the girls get them and they don't know what to do with them. We actually have leaders who will go directly to the places and meet with the girls and go even more in depth. And it's fun. I always see the pictures. My chapter just sent kits to El Salvador, and we got photos of the girls, and they're all so excited with their colorful bags and happy to learn. And they get a day off of school if they're in school, and it becomes a fun day where they're like, oh, like what's happening? Like it's exciting for them to learn about, and they go more in depth about what's happening with their bodies and why it's important, and most importantly, why it's not embarrassing and why it's okay to talk about.
What are you personally doing to change the narrative? Like, have you been on any of these trips where you're actually delivering a kit to a group of girls?
I've been on trips before meeting with kids, and in different countries and supporting them in other ways, but I haven't been on one specifically with Days for Girls. That definitely is something on my list, my bucket list of things I want to accomplish and do. I think it would be an incredible experience, but at the moment, the best way for me is just to continue advocating for it. I've always posted about it on social media, and I created an Instagram account for my chapter to post specifically about our meetings and hope to reach out more. And at work, I always tell people, hey, I'm meeting this week if anyone wants to join. I always tell my friends about it. And I'm very thankful that a lot of people have joined me, which is really exciting. And I think word of mouth is the best way at the moment for anyone just to bring this up and share and talk about what they're doing in any type of volunteer work.
I've been in African countries, so I understand the stigma around girls getting their period in some of these countries. I've seen it, I understand it, I've learned about it. Guess I didn't really realize there was maybe an issue in the United States with women not having access to the proper products. So if there's somebody like me who doesn't quite understand the impact of not having these products for someone here, like, let's make it more specific to the United States because that's where we're able to make more of an impact right here in our own backyard. But what should somebody know about what happens when a girl doesn't have access to the proper products and what they can do then to support those people in their communities?
First, I want to say that yes, there are 64% of women in the United States who can't afford to buy pads and tampons at the store. So that is a huge percentage of women, which is very eye opening. And it's mainly due to the high prices. There's an extra pink tax involved. They're coming from low income areas. And a lot of girls in school only get the products that they need in schools and they're provided in bathrooms or in public places, which doesn't always happen as well. And so in the US, we're able to send kids locally in Minnesota through different church organizations and women's shelters. National disasters are also really big. When the fires in California happened, I think that was less than like a year ago, we sent a lot of kids to Los Angeles because these families are getting displaced. They don't have their homes, they don't know where they're going, and they need their basic necessities. So those are just context for the US and how there is such a big impact here that people don't realize. And so finding your own way to support is so important. Going to a women's shelter and donating products. There's so many food drives around, but no one really thinks about having a feminine hygiene product drive. And I did that recently, which was amazing. I raised over $2,000 to buy products, which I was able to give to another woman who was helping me and deliver them to families all over Minneapolis, which was incredible because it's something you don't think about, people in your own backyard. Okay, so the biggest problem, especially for younger girls, is they don't go to school. And that's a big part of Days for Girls is we want to keep girls in school. I read a stat once, I'm not sure how it's changed over the years. It was a couple years ago, but about 1 in 4 teenagers miss school because of their period. And a period can last anywhere from 3 to 5 days. 5 days is a whole week of school, and that is a lost opportunity for them to grow, be with their friends. They get behind on homework and other things add up. And so that's the biggest impact for young girls is not being able to grow their education. And then for older women, it can prevent them from focusing on their jobs if they can't go to work or they're struggling something related to growing in their career path. Maybe they're in college or they're trying to get a master's, and then maybe they have a family and trying to be a mom, and it prevents them to be their full self because they're dealing with something that they feel they can't talk about and they're struggling on the inside. I think that's a big thing that happens to women is we like to stay strong and we keep our struggles on the inside. And through Days for Girls, I've learned that it's so important to talk about it because you never know what other women are going through. And when you're able to talk about it, you can relate and learn and share perspectives and just continue to empower each other.
You talked about what the Days for Girls kits provide, but what do the girls gain other than just the supplies that are in the kits?
Confidence. Seeing the photos of these girls so excited to get a bag of pads, like, I feel like I was not excited when I got my first period to go shopping for that. It's so incredible to see them so happy because it's really changing their lives. They're like, oh my gosh, yay, like, I can stay in school. I can work if I need to work for my family, for myself. I can hang out with my friends and enjoy life and have fun as a young girl or young adult. And just seeing the smiles on their faces makes me so happy, knowing that we're just ensuring that women are able to continue grow and boost their confidence. And they also feel empowered to talk about it with their other girlfriends. As I mentioned before, we like to hide things sometimes, and it's so nice when you can see other women bringing forth their issues and coming together and standing tall and just continuing to be themselves and not feel shamed for it. It reduces that shameful feeling, the embarrassment, and lets them be them.
How has competing and now serving as Miss Minnesota USA amplified your advocacy in ways that you couldn't have done otherwise or alone?
I've been able to connect with so many more people about this topic, which I, of course, wanted to do prepping to have this title. It was my main focus point, but I didn't realize until I had the title how much weight the crown truly does hold because I would talk to people before I won and people like, "Oh yeah, interesting," but maybe not take me as seriously, but young women and girls all over the country looked up to pageant they really look up to pageant title holders. Of course, I always did as a kid, but now as a title holder and witnessing it even more, I realized how serious it is, and people are taking me more seriously and listening more, and I think that's been incredible as I've been able to get more people involved coming to my volunteer work. I've been Here I am talking to you about this. I was featured on WCCO and I talked about it as well. Just these major opportunities that I wouldn't have had before. And then, like I also mentioned earlier, I did a big drive for feminine hygiene products for families in Minneapolis. And the amount of people who reached out to me about that was mind blowing. Like, I could not believe it how many people were like, wow, I didn't realize this was a big issue. Like, I would love to help. I don't think, I think if I didn't have this title, it wouldn't have gone as far as it did.
What's something that you think people may underestimate about women who compete in pageants?
We're not smart. I feel that many people think pageant girls are ditzy, glam, sparkles, pink dresses, but the girls who compete and the women who compete are so intelligent in their own unique ways and they're so strong. Everyone has a reason to step out on a competition stage and it can range anywhere from they're trying to overcome a personal trauma, they're trying to boost their confidence. Like you don't know what everyone has gone through in their lives, but they decided to come to the stage for a reason and every woman comes out of the stage feeling more empowered than ever. And I was, even as a title holder, I'm still inspired. When I competed at Miss USA, we don't have an age limit. And so the youngest contestant was 19 and the oldest was in her 40s and a mom of three. And just having that range and learning about different perspectives and experience that each contestant has had in her life and why she chose to compete was so empowering and so cool, and you realize that we are some smart women who are very vulnerable in front of a bunch of strangers standing in a swimsuit and talking to judges about our life and we don't know them at all and we're just putting it out our hearts out on the line. We're pretty cool girls, I would say. Strong women.
I would agree with all that. What system or mindset shift allows you to make time for impact with the volunteer work you do while juggling a job and title holder duties?
It's definitely chaotic. I would not say there's a good system. It's more of the mindset of just I want to do this and I want to give it my all. It's only a short chapter in my life. You only have your title for a year or less than a year. Mine is less than a year. And so I want to make the most of it. I work a full 9 to 5 job. I go in the office and I'm corporate Megan working, and then I will go home and then I'm just okay, taking a moment for myself, find time to eat well, to exercise. I love going to yoga. That's where I can really like get in a great headspace and mindset. And then plan my fun events and appearances for the weekend to really connect with the community and meet others and grow even more. And like I mentioned, it's hard. It gets really busy, but it's fun. I'm never dreading anything. And I'm like, why not add more onto my plate? Because it's my one time in my life I can do it and I want to enjoy it.
Love that. Okay, Megan, for somebody listening who might feel uncomfortable at talking about women's health or unsure on how they can step into advocacy like you have,
hmm
what's one bold but simple action that they can take this week to make a difference?
I would say sit down with your close girlfriends and talk about it. Talk about what you guys go through, what emotions you have, how you can learn from each other, what scares you, what makes you vulnerable. It doesn't necessarily have to be around your period. It could be about anything in life and just breaking down those stigmas of being scared and shameful of how you feel on the inside. I think that itself is a great opportunity. And then if you can find a way to donate, that's even better. Go to your local food shelter or women's shelter and see if they're collecting donations for these products and just run to the store, pick up a pack. It's like $10 less and there you go. You're good.
Thank you so much for joining me today and for using your voice for good. I love this platform. I think it's really unique. And it is something hard to talk about, even as women. Like you said, there's a stigma around it. It's kind of tough sometimes. And so I love that you're using your influence to restore dignity and opportunities for women and girls in our own backyard and also around the world. So thank you for providing and proving that advocacy doesn't just have to be really loud and powerful. It just has to be intentional and something that you want to do and want to make time for, like you are, even with a busy schedule. So I love learning more about the impact they're making. And again, great job for being an example as Miss Minnesota USA 2025.
Yay. Thank you so much, Brandi. This was so great. Just another great opportunity to connect, meet someone amazing as well, former title holder. So, again, thank you so much. This was so fun, and I love being able to share my little advocacy and why it's so important. And hopefully, I can encourage more women to go out there and continue empowering others.
You've been listening to Act to Impact with Brandi DeVries. If this show ignited your fire and inspired you to take action to make an impact, please share this episode with a friend, leave a 5-star review, or write a review to let others know how the show impacted you. I can't wait to see the action you are taking to make an impact, and I'd love for you to share that with our community. Go ahead and tag me on social media as you are out making an impact in the world. Do you have a story to share and want to be a guest on Act to Impact? I'd love to connect with you.